Hey, everybody. Welcome to I Dare You podcast. I can't wait for this. What a treat. We have Ben Gallaher with us. He is many things, done a lot in his career so far, and there's a lot more to come. Let's bring him in. Ben, welcome to the podcast. It is such a treat to have you here.
Man, the treat is mine. I appreciate you having me, Darren.
All right, Ben. So you heard a little bit of my introduction of you. You've done a lot so far. You are hustling. You are going for it. Where did this passion for music begin for you? Did you always know this was going to be your path? Where did it start?
Man, to be honest with you, it's a God thing. I started playing guitar at 6, with no formal background, no music in my family, really.
Nothing.
No. And I grew up on 90s country music and loved it. Just got in on me, and my folks got me a guitar when I was 6. And it sounds crazy, man, but that was it. I mean, from then on, I was hooked.
Really? That was it. You know, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, I was going through TikTok, which as of the date of this filming, TikTok is still alive and well. I was going through TikTok and I saw you and you were playing, I believe it was Boot Stomp. It just stopped. You know, you come upon things that just stopped the scroll, and I just watched that. That definitely made a mark. Tell me about the inspiration for Boot Stomp. My goodness.
Yeah, thank you, man. Hey, that's the point, to get somebody to stop scrolling, man. With everything out there, you have about 0.2 seconds to get somebody's attention. Isn't that the fact?
Yeah.
No, I'll take you back to the first boot stomp, really. So I was, as a guitar player, and any guitar player would know what I'm talking about. Is there's so many different riffs and grooves and kind of feels that that a player would come up with or play, and some get lost and some make it into songs, and then you forget some. Or so I was just messing around one day on my guitar, and I had remembered an old riff that I had written like 5 years prior, and I hadn't played it since. And it came back to me, and I was playing it over and over, and I forgot how much this makes my boot want to stomp. And I was like, maybe I'll just do a quick video and throw it up on Instagram and TikTok. Really didn't think much of it, but I thought it sounded like a cool piece. So it was raw on my phone, and I was literally keeping time with my boot on a pedal board case. And it kind of had a thump going, and I was like, that sounds kind of cool. So I threw it up, and the first one, it was on Instagram to start, and I wasn't paying attention to like the numbers or whatever. Well, it's like 7 days go by, and all of a sudden my social media starts lighting up, and I was like, what is going on? And that video was getting wings, man. And it was taken off, and there was all these comments. Hey, what's the song title? And well, at the time there wasn't one. It was just a
I
riff.
love that.
And so I called my producers, and I was like, man, we got to write something to this, because there's a lot of people that are wanting the song. And since the title was Boot Stomp, then we wrote a song called Stomp. And that kind of started like this series, the Boot Stomp series of these guitar riffs that are within like
Interesting.
30 seconds long. And it was like, man, if you can connect with somebody on social media, I mean, that's a tool, but if you can connect with somebody and then they discover all your other recorded music, I mean, that's the power of it, man. And to reach that many people and to grow a fan base and connect with people through music, I mean, that's what.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, one more point on your guitar playing. I still can't believe you're self-taught. Carol of the Strings. Obviously, we just came through the holiday season, and that certainly had to make a mark. I was once again watching this on Instagram. It sounds like there's 8 guitars going, but it's you. It's you. So tell me about Carol of the Strings and how much of an impact did that have?
Yeah, no doubt. So I've always loved Carol of the Bells. Dun, 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 dun. It's such a vibe. It's got a cool, mysterious music thing to it. So the record label I'm signed to, they wanted me to put out a Christmas song. And I was like, well, what if I did an instrumental and I did Carol of the Bells, but I named it Carol of the Strings and had solo acoustic, one guitar. Doing the thing, well, I didn't know that I was supposed to go into the studio that Monday to record this Christmas song. Somehow something got crossed where I didn't know it was going in. Well, this is Friday. And
Unreal.
I'm like, okay, a little bit of a panic because I'm like, you can't rush writing something. When you force something, it usually does
Yeah,
not turn out the way. It's a creative thing.
right.
So I canceled my whole weekend and I'm like, I got a couple days to write my own arrangement of Carol of the Bells, which is going to be called Carol of the Strings.
Right.
So it took me 8 hours and I had a couple different versions because I wanted to keep the theme. And that's the thing about doing a cover song or a variation of a cover song is you can't drift so far away that you lose what made that original so special in the first place, right?
Sure.
But I do want to put my own stamp on it. That's the whole point, or you would just go listen to the original. So there's a line there. So I kind of kept the main bit, but then threw in kind of my style of guitar playing and wrote a couple different parts that kind of went together with that whole vibe. And I was happy with it. And we went in.
Good.
I went in on Monday to record it and I did like I think 6 or 7 passes, and we picked the best one. I mean, really didn't think too much of it. It was like, man, it's supposed to be raw and real and live, and that was it, man. And it was really
Yeah.
cool because I'd never done an instrumental before, especially a Christmas song. So
Man, that's amazing. So for those who have not heard it or seen it yet, make sure you're following Ben on Instagram and on TikTok. It's absolutely incredible. Some of those things about the riffs, I'm a big Def Leppard fan, and I was just listening to an interview with Joe Elliott, and they were asking him, how did Pour Some Sugar on Me come about? And there it was. It's these riffs. They were just playing in a hallway, and someone said, what was that? What is that? And then from there, the creative process just blossoms. So I think that's just fascinating.
mm.
Fascinating. So, hey, listen, you are known as a triple threat singer, songwriter, and guitarist. So tell me, what is it? Let me back up. You're known as a singer, songwriter, and guitarist, but why do you do what you do? You're a talented guy. You could do anything in this world, but why are you honed in so much on this?
Man, to be honest with you, I don't really have a choice. I mean, it's just what I do. And to go back a little bit to the beginning, I kind of I would pound on things before I was 6, before my folks got me a guitar. I would kind of pound on things, and they saw that I was, there was some music in there, and then they my folks got me a drum set, and then that was before 6, and then they got me a guitar, and I kind of was wondering maybe because I was driving the whole house crazy, banging on drums downstairs. But I had a couple lessons early on, and then I kind of just took it from there. I just kind of took it myself and mainly self-taught. But it's just I felt like that was what I was supposed to do, and that was it, man. I mean, it was like so. I think to answer your question, why do I do it? It's just in me. I have to get it out. I mean, music is always playing in my head, and it's definitely been a gift, and it's taken me all over the country and opened, a lot of, especially on the social media side, man, it's been a gift that I get to connect with a lot of people. But there is nothing else I'd ever do because that's it, man.
It has to just be empowering to know that that's what you do. And I talk to so many people, and they're really trying to find their way in life and their purpose. They have a lot of talent. God gave all of us certain talents, but what strikes me about you is that you're aware of the talent that God gave you. You're self-taught, but you don't take that for granted. I mean, you are working at this. What have you learned about taking the talents that you have and how to nurture that and develop that? Any lessons you've learned along the way?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, quite a few lessons. Overall, a good lesson I feel like I've learned being in Nashville and touring full time for the last several years, and playing music professionally would be, I mean, I would say be where you're at. And this could apply to anything, really. I think you can it's very easy to get caught up on what's next, right? Everybody's climbing the ladder. Well, guess what? That ladder never ends.
Mm,
You never are going to get to a place where you're like, all right, I'm good. But that's just never going to happen. And yeah, I think we're wired that way. But to be where you're at and enjoy where you're at, because if not, you're going to miss it. And I think maybe early on I was thinking like, man, I got next, next, next. And I lost track of, taking it in. I mean, there's valleys and peaks, for everything, especially with the
hmm
music business. um,
Yeah.
but, you have to And I learned that, man. And it's like you kind of have to enjoy those all the moments because if not, it flies right past you, and not to get caught up on, okay, this is good, but I want better. That's next. And it is a good mentality to have, right? It is good to always be raising the bar for you. Like for me personally, like I'm always trying to raise the bar musically, vocally, songwriting, and that's great. I think you have to have that, but not so much that you don't enjoy the process, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, it's really good advice. I talk to so many high performers, entrepreneurs, athletes, and one of the things that I hear a lot from them is it's this word should. I should be further along. And maybe if they don't even say it, it's the social comparison where they look around them and there's always, to your point, there's always someone, you can find it, someone doing better or perceived to be doing better. And now with social media, it's completely in your face. How have you dealt with that, the social comparison and really self-reflecting on where you should be? What's your story on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think a lot of people, I mean, that's a big thing. Thankfully, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, I really had not struggled too much with that because I've always believed everybody's got their own thing,
Good.
and you can't compare two different. I mean, I mean, comparing, you're going to get yourself on the, I mean, that's the devil, man. You're going to get yourself in a bind, really and you'll drive yourself crazy. Well, why aren't I on this tour? Or why isn't my song, you're going to drive yourself nuts. So I kind of always have horse blinders on in terms of that because everybody's story is different and everybody has different gifts. And so you can't play that game or it's not going to go well for your mental state.
Yeah, no, that's very, very wise words. Very wise words. And I think that the advice about staying in the moment and enjoying it, it's so easy to miss that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Another follow-up on this, Ben, is that, if you look at, you talked about, this is what you were meant to do, but there are many people who are thinking about, do I try something else? Do I do that passion project? And maybe it's a plan B or I'd like your perspective on that because are you a guy who believes that always have kind of that fallback or are you kind of the burn the ships, here we are, we're going for it and there ain't no coming back?
Yeah,
Which type are
man.
you and what have you learned?
Oh, that's a great question. Man, I've never had a backup plan.
Never. This is it.
This is it, man. Honestly, I always thought, chew on this one time. I always thought if you have a backup plan, you're already setting yourself up for a failure.
Okay, here we go. Talk to me.
If so much is mental, man. I mean, so much is mental. And it's like, all right, if I'm about to do something, it doesn't have to be music, it could be anything. I'm about to do something. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Then I'll just go do this. Well, that's a terrible spot to be in. That's telling you already it's probably not going to work out.
Yes.
Being okay with that. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own way to, tackling something like that. But for me, I was like, man, you can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have it or it's not going to go. So I was like 1,000% in on music.
That's great. That's great. By the way, I'm laughing with you. I mean, I'm watching you here. I'm smiling at you because it is such a different way of looking at it, and I love it. And I'm thinking if I were in your situation, no, I tend to have a backup plan. Just so you know, I tend to always have a backup plan. But let's say someone's listening, they're driving to work, Ben, right now, and they've got a mortgage and they got, young family and really? Don't you think I need a backup plan? That's a bit of a trap question. I'm just trying to continue this. But what do you think? Really? You burn the ships and go for it?
See, and I think it could be situational too.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I'm all about, hey man, there's no dream too big, go and do it. But at the same time, you do have to be realistic and being self-aware. Being able to
Mm-hmm.
look in the mirror or listen to the song or listen to what you're creating and really being honest with yourself
Yeah.
because it's not for everybody. No industry is made for everybody, right? Just because I painted my house doesn't mean I can be a professional painter, you know? So it's like, I think that you have to be self-aware enough to know that, I mean, yeah, maybe there's definitely times where you definitely should have a plan B, and
Yeah.
you should be prepared for, I think it's situational. I don't think that's a one size fits all. For me in my career, that's kind of where I've always lived and still live, but I don't know if that works for absolutely everything, especially if you got bills you can't pay and you got a family. I mean, I get it, you know. I'm not saying you should chase down the wildest crazy dream when you got other responsibilities that are a little more important. Hey man, once you have a family, it ain't about you anymore. So
Yeah.
so it's like that's where it's like, man, I don't know if I'd
Yeah, I hear you. By the way, on that front, tell me about you and your family. Are you a family man? Are you a single guy?
I am a family man. I've been married for 7 years. My wife
All
keeps the
right.
wheels on. And we welcomed our firstborn, a baby boy, 5 months ago.
All right. Congratulations. What's his
Thanks,
name?
man. His name's River Jones Gallaher.
Oh, that's a name to live up to. I love that. River.
Yeah,
That
it's
was your
been
first.
firstborn, man. It's been absolutely unbelievable. I mean, people can tell you all the time, like, man, you just wait, it changes everything. It's like, yeah, that's what everybody says, right? You know, you've heard it all before, and then it happens to you, and it's like, yeah, you can't really explain that until it's amazing.
That's really cool. That's awesome. All my kids are grown and out of the house, but I still remember like the first holiday season. And is this first grandchild on either side?
No, this is like six for my family and
Okay.
three for my wife's family.
Yeah. Exciting
How many
times.
kids do you
Exciting
have,
times.
Darren?
You know what? I have three kids, and they are all single. I say that because I want a grandchild, just so you know. But I have a 33-year-old daughter, a 31-year-old son, and then a 26-year-old daughter. And they seem to be in no rush, Ben. Maybe if you could reach out to them on my behalf, that'd be great, okay? Hey, Ben,
Man,
I am living through you on this as far as touring. You've been busy. You're really working your craft. What do you love most about touring, and what do you love least about it? Again, I've never done it. I just kind of wanted a little insight into what is it like being on the road.
man, yeah, I've always loved being on the road. I mean, that's kind of what, I mean, from the very beginning, like I had to figure out, man, I got to get a van and rent a van until I could buy one and then move up from there. And I love the traveling. But so getting into it, man, is like you're getting to meet these people all over the country playing songs. You know, I get to meet these people playing songs I wrote and then watch them connect with a song, a lyric and a melody from the stage and how it relates to what they're going through. Man, that's like wow. And then afterwards, getting a chance to talk to them and saying, "Man, that song, or that song you played, man, hit me like this," and they tell me their side of the story. I mean, that is so. I mean, that's music right there. It's connecting with somebody that you've never met, but can get on a level right quick because of a lyric and a melody, because it made you feel something. And that is one of my favorite parts, is being able to take these songs, and go connect with people on them. I mean, I love the traveling and seeing different, all the country, but the thing of it touring is you don't get to stay in that town for very long. I mean, you're in it
Yeah.
and you're out. The hardest part is watching my wife hold our baby as I'm pulling out and she's on the front porch and I'm going out to work.
Oh, yes.
Which is, I mean, that's what I'm born to do, but that don't mean it make it any easier when you got a family.
So true. So true. Very, very different. I've been in corporate America my whole life, but when I was a younger guy, I would travel about 4 days a week, and I would drive from Minneapolis to Chicago every week. Ben, I remember on Sunday
Dang.
afternoon. Yeah, I know, brutal. Sunday afternoon, we'd watch the Minnesota Vikings, and then have a little, play a little football in the backyard, and then I'd hop in the car and drive. I still remember all my wife and the kids just waving, and I rationalized it by saying, you do what you got to do during this season of life in order to do it. And so, no, as anyone who's been in that situation, you get it. You get the tension. You have to do it, and you got to do it, but also you don't want to leave.
No doubt, man. Where are you from
Yeah.
originally, Darren?
I'm from Minnesota originally. That's where I grew up, and then I've moved all around the country. I worked in a pharmaceutical industry, and right now I'm a senior VP of sales for a big company out here in Idaho, and love what I do. But I've moved all over the country for work, relocation, and yeah. And I just have to tell this. I bet there's not a week goes by, Ben, where I don't say this to someone. I love watching live performers, whether it is in music or in, athletes. Anyone who can handle that kind of pressure and bring out their talent in the moment they need to is just really fun to watch. And I see that, which is why you caught my eye. I see that in you. It just seems like you just absolutely love what you do and you're just in the moment.
I
Yeah.
appreciate
Hey, Ben, I have got to hear about this new release. So hold on just one second. Let me go to it right here. It is called, hold on, I just had it. Doggone it. The Cowboys. Give me a second. Ben, what's the title of it? I had it right here pulled up. No, here. Oh, I got it. Here we go.
Cowboys Left.
All right, let me start over. So, Ben, I got to hear about this new release. Still a Few Cowboys Left. Tell me about this song. Where did it come from?
Man, so I put out Still a Few Cowboys Left like probably 2 years ago, the full track. And it always just poked its head out, man, live and on social media. It just always kept going. And so not that long ago, we had said, well, what if we did an acoustic version? I've been doing a lot of acoustic stuff on, my Instagram and TikTok. That's kind of what, built a lot of those things. Well, what if we did an acoustic version of Still a Few Cowboys Left? In preparation for a bunch of new music we have coming out real soon, which we'll talk about.
Okay.
And so what if we teed off 2025 with, it's called Still a Few Cowboys Left Campfire, because it's like an acoustic campfire version.
Nice.
So that's out, man, and blessed that everyone's loving it, man. I'm fired up about it. It's kind of the song that keeps on giving.
That is so good. There again, for those who are following Ben on Instagram, you probably have seen it, but I'm looking at it right there. I mean, you're just bringing it, my friend, and so you're just lost in the moment. I love seeing that. So great work. While we're on this topic, though, what else can you tell us, about some of the new music you have coming up? What do you have coming up here in the new year?
Man, I think it's the best stuff I've ever done.
Really? Why?
Yeah. And I say that not for one reason in specific. I think vocally, let me take it back right quick. We put out a version of Bryan Adams' Cuts Like a Knife.
Don't get me started. I didn't think someone could do that song justice, but you did. Anyway, so I digress. Keep going.
Thank you. Bryan Adams is a heck of a singer, man. Unbelievable. Let me tell you right quick on the story on that. My producers, Neil Thrasher, Patrick Thrasher, Neil calls me and says, hey, Cuts Like a Knife? And I was like, Bryan Adams? I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, trust me. We're going to go in and record that song. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. He was like, I'm hearing this. I got a visual musical thing in my ear that I'm hearing, and you could crush that song with your vocal. I think it would sound awesome. And I was like, all right, man. He's like, just trust me. I was like, all right. All right. I had never played it before. I knew the song, but never had done it.
Really?
He said, hey, we're going to do it in the original key. And I'm like, Bryan gets up there, man. And I'm like, the original key said, you need to just trust me. So I was like, all right. So we go in, and it blew my mind on, kind of where my vocal was sounding in that higher register, which I hadn't really explored, to be honest with you, because it's like pretty high up there. That's the sign of a great producer that pulls something out of an artist that they don't know is living in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put that song out. I mean, it was cool because it took a lot of people back that grew up on that in the 80s. And also it introduced people to that song on Bryan Adams that maybe the younger generation that maybe not had heard Cuts Like a Knife before. And we play it live and everybody's singing it because it takes everybody back.
Well, for sure. My story on that is that I bought a Pioneer phonograph in 1985, I think it was. And, Ben, you should have seen it in my bedroom. It was beautiful. I mean, every album sounded so good on it. But one of the first albums I bought was Bryan Adams and Cuts Like a Knife. So when I heard you sing that, I'm like, okay, that for you to tackle that is something, but you nailed it. And it brought me right back. So well done.
Man.
What else you got coming?
So that song, Cuts Like a Knife, kind of took my vocal to this higher range, and which I had never really explored before. So this new batch of songs that we got coming out in 25 kind of explores that higher register too.
All right.
And I think the songs are great, and I think there's some really cool guitar parts. I mean, as a player, I get just as excited about, writing the guitar solos and the riffs. I've always thought the guitar is an extension of me and what I do. And just because it doesn't have a lyric, it can still make you feel something. And I put a lot of pressure, not pressure, that's the wrong word. Put a lot of weight on an intro riff of a song because it's the first thing the listener hears before you even get into anything else. They're either hitting the next skip,
True,
or they're letting it play. Think of, like, not to compare any of this stuff to Sweet Home Alabama, but for the riff purpose, think about Sweet Home Alabama or any of those rock songs, man. 0.2 seconds into that, you know exactly what it is because it's an iconic, it's so memorable, and it gets in on you. I mean, and all those songs from that era were very riff based. So I kind of take an approach like that to some of my stuff, which probably was formed from Stomp because I saw the power of, a riff that moved people. That's kind of where I put a lot of weight on those guitar riffs just because that's the first thing somebody hears.
that's so great. Yeah, you're a child of the '80s. You might be 57 years old. You just don't know it. Look at you.
And I was
That's
born
good.
50 years too late.
All right, Ben, as far as other things happening this year, what else do you have coming up that we should know about? I do want to talk to you about Prison Tour, but before I do that, though, I want to make sure I hear what else is going on for you this year.
Man, so between releasing the new music and touring and raising a young boy, man, that's it. That's where I'm living. That's going to keep me mighty busy. I hope to get up to Idaho.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you have any plan? Do you know exactly where you're going yet, or is it kind of a little more fluid?
Yeah, they're doing all that right as we speak, man.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get out y'all's way.
All right. Well, I'm going to be tracking you, and if you're coming through Idaho, I'll drop you a note. I'd love to shake your hand and meet you in person, okay?
Hey, likewise, man. I'll bring a coat, man, because you all get some cold weather up there.
I may have an extra or two for you. Hey, Ben, here's what happened to me last year. A highlight of my year, a lot of years. I was invited to go to San Quentin prison for just like an 8-hour event. It was called God Behind Bars. A friend of mine invited me in, and we went into this prison. And I don't pretend to be an expert in prison ministry or prisons, but it moved me. It changed me because I was able to talk to some of the inmates and learn about their story and how they are changing their life still from behind bars. Tell me a little bit more about what you do with Prison Tour in the Pennsylvania State prisons. Tell me more about this.
Well, that's awesome, man, that you got to sit. I've heard about that program too. That's amazing. Yeah, and you'll agree it's very moving to go into a place like that and do what you're doing. So with the Prison Tour, I did it for 10 years. Guy in Pennsylvania that I was am good friends with, he worked at one of the state prisons, and this is 2011. And he said, "Hey man, you ever think about coming and playing for the inmates?" And I was like, "No, I have not thought about that before." And he's like, "Well, we're trying to do something different this year, maybe have some music in here, what are your thoughts?" And I was like, "Well, I'm down." It reminded me of Johnny Cash.
Yeah, of course.
And so I went in that one year and just did one show, solo acoustic in the gymnasium. Brought in my speakers, 350 inmates on bleachers there, and it spread naturally to all the other state prisons in PA. So my phone started ringing about wanting to, have me play and book a show. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do a prison tour. I played almost all of them in PA over that 10 years. And I'm telling you, man, and you'll know this because you did some of that stuff, but it's the most moving thing. I'm in there playing, you could hear a pin drop. You want to talk about a captive audience, but you could hear a pin drop, and I get a chance to talk to some of the guys afterwards. The dude says, "Man, I've been in here for 20 years, and I got to tell you, I hate country music. But those songs just changed my whole outlook on life. And when I get out of here soon, you make me want to go chase my dreams and be a better person." Man, that'll hit you like a hammer. As an artist and a musician and a songwriter or a singer, that's why you do what you do. To have an impact like that on somebody, especially when they're probably in the lowest point of their lives that they've been. And to connect with somebody like that is pretty powerful, man. And I'll get messages on Facebook or Instagram or whatever and saying, "Hey, just wanted to say thanks for coming in to play the whatever prison in PA. My son, I talked to my son on the phone. I haven't heard him that happy in 10 years. And he said you took him out of prison for 90 minutes and made him think about his life at home and everything through those songs. So it's like,
whoa,
it's things like that over and over 10 years. It's quite a few of that. And that's really what kept me going, Darren, is like to go back and do this year after year is because of that. Now, guys have since gotten out and seen and come out to shows in person.
Have they?
Oh, yeah. And at the merch stand or meet and greet line afterwards, several times the guys would come up and say, hey, man, you won't know who I am, but I saw you in 2013 outside of Pittsburgh at a state prison. I just want to tell you that show did, and
That's
hearing that.
Unbelievable. That's so cool. Well, Ben, and by the way, just a quick, in a second, Ben, I'm going to ask you for your I Dare You challenge for all of us. But before I do that, what Ben just reflected on, you don't have to be a singer, songwriter, guitarist in order to have that impact. I mean, what Ben just shared there is a very specific situation. But reflect back on whatever your vocation is and consider for a moment how much impact you can have on others, especially as leaders of people, leaders of teams. You can have such an impact on people's lives just by bringing your God-given talents just full bore into your workplace. Be the best leader you can be, help others, look for people who need that hand. And Ben's story just illustrates that beautifully in a way that puts an exclamation point on that. Ben, any other reaction to that? I think it's just beautiful.
Man, I appreciate that. No, I'm just sitting here listening to that, man. I love the message, your message and the whole vibe of this podcast, man. It's very positive and uplifting, I just got to say. It's really cool what you've been doing on here.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm glad you're here. You're taking it one level higher. Hey, Ben, what's the best way to follow you and stay in touch with everything you got going on?
Well, I would first start with TikTok's back, but we'll see. Instagram probably is my most. Instagram at Ben_Gallaher, not Gallagher, Gallaher.
Gallaher.
You got it. TikTok, Facebook, BenGallaher.com. Y'all check out the tour dates in 2025. I'm hoping I'll be coming to your town, and then all the new music we got coming out. But that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. It's awesome. So, Ben, at the end of every episode, I ask my guests, what is your I Dare You challenge for all of us? There's no wrong answer here, but it is the one thing that you would dare us to try or do to live a better life. All right, Ben Gallaher, what do you think?
One thing to live a better life. Man, I'd say put your faith in God and put him first in everything. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think a lot of things come down to that, man. And that's where I'm at. And I'd say that's my challenge. I don't know if it's a challenge, but that's where, if you're looking for kind of live a better way, or however you put it, man, that's kind of where I go.
You know what? That is a great challenge. We've had 158 episodes. No one has given that specific I Dare You challenge before, and so I have to ask a quick follow-up. So why so specific on that? You didn't take long to hone in on that, but why are you so convinced that that's the challenge?
Man, I think God has given us all different gifts and talents, which is a lot of what we talked about. And I think it's different for everybody. And I knew at a young age that God gave me the gift of music and singing and playing guitar. So I've honed in on that forever because of that. And you can't go through life alone. Having God as the rock, I mean, that changes everything. And because there's a lot of bad out there, man. And it's like you can't take it on yourself. And the devil's working overtime. So that's where I'm at.
That's great. Well said. I appreciate that, Ben. And listen, I want to thank you again for being on the podcast. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, and you were kind enough to come on the show and for you to share your perspective on where you've been, but more importantly, where you're going. Really exciting. Can't wait to see where this new year takes you. So, Ben, thanks again for being here.
Appreciate it, Darren. Thank you, sir.